Hey guys, Curtis Alexander. In this video, I'm going to talk about my history with extreme diets, the problems I had with the keto diet and extreme diets, why they occurred, and just give you a little bit of my backstory because as I've done these nutritional videos, I continue to get more and more people reaching out who are experiencing the same thing. So I want to kind of start from the beginning in this video, give you a little background, and in future videos, I'm going to create a playlist that just kind of walks you through the process and how you can tackle this and do it much faster than I did. So let's start with my backstory, what was going on, what ended up happening, and what's going on in your body when you do these kind of diets. So I started experiencing health problems 2002, 2003, right after my sons were born. I was gaining weight. I was pretty soft, but the biggest part was I was getting constant hives. I was always breaking out in hives. My fingers would swell up. I couldn't wear my wedding ring. Constantly getting sinus infections. So something was clearly wrong. I went to an allergist twice. They tested me for allergies. Couldn't come up with anything. I went to sinus specialists. They couldn't come up with anything. So I just got frustrated and I went on an elimination diet. I figured something must be going on. So I went on a modified fruit fast, which meant uh, breakfast and lunch, I had basically fruit. And then for supper, I would have like some meat and potatoes. Anything else outside of that was off limits. And within a month, skin cleared up, no more hives. I started to lose weight. Things were definitely looking up. Well, that got me started down the diet route. And then I started looking at low carb. So around that time, I started the low carb journey, and these aren't actually in order. I kind of did all these and bounced back and forth from 2003 all the way up to 2018, 2019. So I did low carb. Then as I went down that low carb rabbit hole, like so many of us do, I got into keto and I got into carnivore. And around probably 2009, 2010, I got into fasting. So for the last 10 years, I was not only doing a daily fast where I would eat in a restricted window of 6 to 8 hours, where I would eat the rest of the time I was fasting, and I was also doing low carb. Towards the end, I never went over 100 grams of carbs. I was very commonly 30 to 50 grams of carbs a day, along with daily fasting. 2018 to 2019 is when I really started to experience problems. I couldn't ignore them anymore. I had been noticing changes the last year or two, but people ask me, why are you doing this? And it's like, you tie your identity to a diet. You think you've got it all figured out until your health tells you you don't. And about this time, I was really not getting good sleep, very seldom sleeping through the night. I felt stress. I don't know how to describe this. I'm a very chill dude, but I never felt chill at times, which was kind of weird for me. There was definitely stuff going on in my personal life that affected that, but not to this point. I was really good about working out. And at that time, I was doing more of kind of heavier lifting, at least for me. Like a deadlift was twice my body weight. So I was fairly strong, but my physique wasn't improving that much. It's like I was really hanging on to kind of this skinny fatness, I guess, for lack of a better description. The last two kickers are going to the doctor. I knew something was up, and we just happened to have a lab draw at work. I went and got my labs drawn, and I showed up. My fasting blood sugars were it was like 106 or 109, I can't remember, which put me back in the pre-diabetic range because back here there was some concern that I may have been diabetic. That's why I started going down that low carb route too. But so I showed up as pre-diabetic, and I also showed up as having low thyroid, which explains some of the symptoms I was experiencing. So uh, the funny part is the first 6 months after I got that, I doubled down. My doctor told me that, and I'm like, well, maybe I need to eat fewer carbs. So I went like militant, no more than 30 grams of carbs, just kind of doubled down, really hard carnivore for those 6 months. Got my labs drawn again, same thing. It was like a 104 blood sugar. I was still up there and I couldn't figure out how can your sugars be high when you're not eating carbs. Everybody in the keto carnivore, all this community, it's like, carbs are the enemy. They cause diabetes and they'll kill you, and fatty alcohol or fatty liver disease and all these things. And I knew something was wrong. I was missing something in there. And my health conditions humbled me enough to kind of reinvestigate how our bodies actually work. And so I decided it was time to make a change. And so I get a lot of people coming to me with very similar issues. Maybe they weren't doing it as long as me. That actually means you're much smarter than me, because I kept beating my head against the door because, again, I had tied my identity to this low carb thing. So I had these problems. And so when you begin to understand how your body actually works, and I want to give credit to some other people in this space that helped me in my journey. um, there's the Ray Peets, the Kate Deerings, Danny Roddy's. I'm going to forget some, Chris Walker. There's a lot of these people in this space that, you're kind of standing on their shoulders a little bit. And some of this stuff I kind of figured out on my own too, but those guys really provided me with huge pieces of the puzzle. So how in the world can I be experiencing some of these things when everybody's like, keto's great, carnivore is great? And don't get me wrong, in the beginning they were. I felt better, but doing it long term introduces some problems. Okay. So, first of all, you got to remember your preferred fuel source of your body is glucose. And the easiest way for your body to get glucose is from carbohydrates, natural carbohydrates. Okay. Important distinction there. When you cut those out, like I was, your body's response is to go, okay, we need to find another way to get glucose to the body. So it increases stress hormones. Particularly, it's going to increase cortisol and adrenaline, and it will start producing glucose from fat stores, even from protein if it needs to. And that introduces some problems. Okay, short term, this is a very helpful adaptation that your body has. If you're out in the wild and you get lost and you can't come across food, your body has a way to fuel itself by breaking down its tissues to provide glucose. And by the way, one of the biggest users of glucose in your body is actually your brain. Okay. So that's great. Short term, it's great. But long term, like I did, you run into these problems. More and more people experience the same thing. Okay. Now, it's great to say, I want to be a fat burner. Well, you actually don't want to be a fat burner in that way. Okay. Nobody wants to be fat. Nobody wants to be obese. But when you become a fat burner, and I've talked about this in other videos, um, basically what happens is when you're metabolizing free fatty acids instead of carbohydrates, your cells can't use fats and carbs at the same time. So those fats that are now floating around in your body can actually block the insulin receptors and block the effects of insulin bringing carbohydrates into the cell. So you can actually become insulin resistant. And the more you do it, the more you tend to see this, which explains why you can have high blood sugars on a very low carbohydrate diet. In short, you've become metabolically inflexible, meaning you're going to have a very tough time metabolizing carbohydrates. So when you eat them, if you do try to eat them, you're going to experience bloating, you're going to experience weight gain. So it's easy to blame carbs when it's not really carbs that are the problem. It's the fact that you can't metabolize them because we have become so fixated on not eating carbs. You want metabolic flexibility. Cutting carbs out makes you metabolically inflexible. That is not what you want. That's what had happened to me. Furthermore, when you can't oxidate, when you can't burn glucose, glucose gives you like 36 to 38 ATPs per molecule of glucose that breaks down. When you're not able to do that, you are going to produce less ATP. ATP is basically your mitochondria take the food, break it down into energy. ATP is your your level of energy that your body's producing. So if you're producing less ATP, you produce less energy. Okay? Now we have stress hormones are constantly elevated because we're not getting the carbohydrates and the glucose. One of the things stress hormones will do is they'll recognize that and go, okay, we need to down regulate things because we're not getting, I talk about this a lot, we're not getting nutrients that we really need. So it down regulates, thyroid function gets hurt, thyroid function decreases, thyroid drives your metabolism goes down, energy goes down. Here's the kicker, and this is what I'm going to talk about in the next couple of videos, is the recovery process. One of the more common questions I get is, okay, I'm having problems with keto, carnivore, whatever it may be. How long is it going to take me to fix this problem I've created? I'm going to talk about that in the next video, but I can tell you for doing it for this long, it was an extremely frustrating process. It's extremely slow. However, I could have made it much easier on myself and I could have made it faster to recover. And I'll talk about some of the things that you need to do in the next video. So let me know in the comments, guys, questions that you have along the lines of this video. If you've experienced similar issues, it's really helpful. This is becoming more and more prominent that people are coming out and going, I've got issues, I've got problems. So let me know in the comments. I hope this was helpful and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.